Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. New Zealand First joins with other parties in recognising that on the 4th of August 2014, New Zealand entered the First World War alongside Britain and the rest of the British Empire. That followed the 3rd of August, where neutral Belgium was invaded, and where also on that day war was declared on France. Mr. Speaker, for those of us in this House and many New Zealanders, and indeed from around the Commonwealth, we all must recognise that was a hugely significant date for this country and changed the course of history. For those of us who have been fortunate to visit Flanders and the World War I fields in Flanders, it's a most moving place and occasion. I can recall in the 10 years while I represented the Belgian and the Flemish government here in New Zealand, visiting on a number of occasions and going to the Passchendaele Cemetery and seeing the thousands and thousands of white crosses with New Zealand ferns on them, and to see all those names of so many young New Zealanders, many without names, many in unmarked graves, was very moving. And to walk through, I remember one day walking through in complete mist through the cemetery, and I was just there on my own, and to just be walking through the mist where you could only see 20 or 30 feet in front of you and just see gravestone after gravestone coming up before you and wondering when will they ever end, and seeing all the silver ferns was most moving. I was very fortunate also to represent New Zealand at the laying of a wreath at the Messine Gate at Ypres, and again, to know that the Belgians every night at 8 p.m. every night have a ceremony there, and they have done so since the 1920s to mark the tragedy of the First World War, and the fact that they still recognise the great sacrifices that were made by so many young people coming from all over the world to uphold democracy. It is most moving, Mr. Speaker. And a few years ago we did the same here in New Zealand. In 2009 we held the Field of Remembrance in Takapuna, at Fort Takapuna, to mark the Battle of Passchendaele commemorations, and it was most moving to have 5,000 crosses up on the headland at Fort Takapuna. People from all over Auckland and indeed from around New Zealand came to see those white crosses. And again, it was most moving to see the equivalent of the cemeteries in Flanders and in France transported to the shores of New Zealand. And it was great to see so many young people want to go and see those crosses and to be part of it and to understand the history of it. And when the 100 white pigeons were released into the air at that time, as Mayor of the city at the time, I was very, very proud to see how we were taking on that important part of history, and people were very much recognising the part that they had played. Mr. Speaker, the First World War is now history, but it has shaped the world of today. Anyone speaking of that catastrophic event does so with due respect for all the loss and suffering it entailed. Although far distant from New Zealand, this country paid a heavy price in that conflict. Historians and others have produced volumes about the war. We may think we understand that war, its causes and its consequences, but we should observe due discretion about judging those events. New Zealanders can be proud of the part their country took in that conflict. It was a war in which our country found a deeper sense of national identity at the terrible carnage of Gallipoli and in the fields of France and Flanders. New Zealand First considers that this is a time for all who value New Zealand and its democracy to acknowledge the sacrifices made in the First World War. We will remember them.
Te ura rā, Flavel.